Hi, my name is Alicia and welcome to Literacy Coven. Today's video is a chat discussion all about the book, The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. But before we have our chat discussion, I wanted to quickly talk about Literacy Coven because this is the first video on our channel. So Literacy Coven started as a virtual book club, and below will be linked to the Facebook group. The whole point of Literacy Coven is that it is a book club for everybody. All are welcome. Everybody has a voice. Everybody gets to share their opinion. Everybody's included. Every single month we vote for the book of the month. Every single month we vote on what day we should hold our chat discussion. Every month we hold the chat discussion in a private Facebook Messenger. And we kind of just talk about everything together. And then I also, in the group, I will post the questions for those who don't want to be on camera. And then for those who want to watch the chat discussion at a later date, I have started doing YouTube. I just thought it would be something really fun, and it allows you to still be a part of the group. Or if instead you want to just have like a one-on-one experience, or just like a friend to read a book with and kind of just talk about it with, that's what I'm here for. There's also an Instagram, and it'll be linked down below as well. But yeah, so this is a place for reading and friends and fun, book reviews, chat discussions, all that fun stuff. So without further ado, let's get started. So the first question is, what did you think of the world building and the flashback chapters? So I'm the kind of reader who doesn't really enjoy for there to be a lot of world dumping. There are several books where I could really do without the first couple hundred pages, because all it does is just like shove the world's history into my face, and it's just too much for me. So I did enjoy that it didn't shove too much world building at me at one point. The beginning was a little slow for me, but that kind of happens with books, so I can't really fault it too much. And when it came to like the flashback chapters, I liked them, but I didn't like them at the same time. So the reason I liked it is because it was a unique way to world build and get more information on the characters. But the reason I didn't like it is once I start getting really into the present, it just keeps jumping back when it's like, no, I want to know more about what's happening. So that was something I didn't really enjoy about it. But at the same time, it kind of made sense for it to do that. It kind of made, while the writing style was more poetic, and I do like the writing style, the way it was written, I didn't really enjoy how it really felt like each chapter was its own story, and it's like the book was just a bunch of stories put together because it jumps around so much. So that's something to consider as well. So the next question is, did you enjoy the structure and the flow of the book? So like I mentioned, the first chapter of the book, or not the first chapter, the first part of the book is kind of slow. We kind of have to see what's going on. I did start enjoying the middle when Henry was like, oh, I remember. And I'm like, ooh, he remembers, you know, like, let's see where this goes. But then it was just like, it went downhill. So I started being really, really interested, but then towards like the part 5 to 6, it just really went downhill for me. I just felt like it was kind of all over the place, and there was too much shoved towards the two last parts, whereas like the other parts of the book had chapters and stories that necessarily didn't matter, but then towards the end, like there's all these, apparently she spent decades with Luke, and you don't hear about it other than like 2 pages, and I'm like, I want to know more about that, not some guy she met in France named Remy at one point. Like, yeah, he was important to the story, but it's like we didn't need every single person. I just feel like it lacked, whereas we could have benefited from more information on She Spent with Luke than just like a couple of pages that covered decades of information. I also felt it was just kind of random, and it came up out of nowhere, and I wasn't really expecting it. And not like that, ooh, a twist. It was like a, oh, okay, this is happening. I don't see the pieces. I don't see how it got here, but this is what's happening kind of way. So the ending was kind of got triggering for me. So as someone who has a history of like domestic violence, it was really possessive, and I didn't know it was going there. And I was triggered. It has like a negative connotation to it, but like I'm okay with being uncomfortable and reading something even if like it hits on like a trigger or whatever, but it just got so possessive and repetitive that it just really fell flat for me. And I was like, okay, so what's supposed to happen here? Like, she's got Henry, cool, we know about the curse for him, but then it's like, where are we going from here? There's supposed to be a big conflict, and it just felt like it never rose to the challenge, I suppose. So one of my favorite things is plot holes. So were there any plot holes in the book for you? For me, one of the plot holes was her forgetting. So it's like, the book itself is really interesting with the concept that people can't remember her, and I have no problem with that. My thing that was confusing, and I've heard from other people is confusing as well, is the fact that some people assumed they forget at night, but then we start hearing throughout the book that she could shut a door and then the person forgets, but then it just kind of got inconsistent, because it's like, what if she's spending the day with someone? If they look at their phone, do they forget her? If they turn around, do they forget her? Also, she spends long periods of time with these people. What if someone's got to go to the bathroom? Like, it was just kind of inconsistent, and I know these points don't really matter to the core of the story, but it was just a plot hole that was kind of funny. Like, what if someone's got to poop? What do you do? What happens? What if you gotta go poo? What is something original for you about this book? For me, it was definitely the art. I later found out that the author has a history with art history. I don't know if she has a degree or something, but it's something that she is really experienced in, and it was kind of cool that she got to bring that into a book, and I did enjoy reading it. And I love the idea that while Addie couldn't leave a mark on the world, she was able to inspire others with art. And then as she got older, to be 300 years old, the art was like keepsakes for her, and she can look back, and it was one of the only tangible things she could actually hold on to other than her memories. It was something physical that she can look back on, and it holds a memory for her, because she isn't able to keep items. They always disappear, whatever happens. So I thought that was really interesting. Something I also found interesting and like kind of original was basically anybody in our world that we know is like famous or successful, it's pointed out in the book that they've made deals with Luke, and it kind of gives you the feeling of, okay, so people can only be successful or famous for a cost, which I kind of thought was an interesting point to real life, because obviously there's costs to being famous and stuff like that. So I thought that was kind of like an interesting pull into the book. Did you have any predictions when you were reading the book? And if so, did they come true? So this book was completely predictable for me. Something I do because of the book club and like with my ADHD is I like to take notes while I'm reading, because it helps me remember key things I want to talk about. It helps me form questions, because I create the questions for the chat discussions and for the videos and all of that stuff. So I'm going to read you some of my notes. Getting the vibe that Henry is tied to the darkness somehow. So that was when we see Henry a little bit, and she just doesn't want to leave him, and then it's like he doesn't want to leave her, and I'm like, okay, something's going on. Something fishy is going on, and I just got this feeling that he was connected. My original theory was he was sent by the darkness, and that Henry had ulterior motives, or he was a bad guy or something like that, but obviously that's not true, other than the fact that he was sent by Luke. Another note I have is Luke loves her, and when he claims her soul, it'll be different than the others. Sorry about the car noise. Which did end up being true, because the way he claimed her wasn't typical to where he would claim a soul, obviously towards the end. I started questioning, is he a god? Which he did end up being a god, but he would be more of like the devil, and then it kind of got me wondering, does he pretend to be God, like a Christian God, because he goes into the church and everything? And then it even talks about how to Joan of Arc he comes off as angelic. So I'm like, does he pretend to be God? That was an interesting thought I had too. A note I have is, I hope they don't have sex. And they do. I just really started getting like this icky vibe between Addie and then Luke, and I was like, please don't have sex, please don't have sex, and they did. It really started to feel like an abusive relationship between Addie and Luke, which obviously it is, especially with how possessive he is. One of my theories was, I think Henry dies and she ends with Luke, which was correct, at least what I thought it was correct. So I was listening on YouTube to it some of the time, and I thought it ended at part 6. So for me, the original ending was she goes off to Luke and then Henry's falling, and I'm like, okay, he dies. Like, Luke tricked her. Henry dies. What about Book? Who's gonna feed the cat? And obviously later on I found out there's a part 7, and that's not truly how it ends, so that is half right. Favorite part of the book, or what was most memorable for you? For me, my favorite part was them finding loopholes in her curse. So after 300 years of not leaving a mark, basically, I thought it was really interesting that her and Henry together could paint, could write, could take photographs, and I thought it was a really, really interesting thing to add into the book, and I really appreciated the detail, and it was one of my favorite parts. Least favorite part, I definitely didn't like how she spent decades with Luke and it's only covered for a couple of pages. It also kind of felt out of nowhere. I guess it was like, for me, it really went from she hates him to she kind of hates him to they're having sex, and it was just really kind of inconsistent with the build up for that. And I didn't ship them. I didn't want them together, and normally I'm like a big shipper. I love a slow burn. I love the smut. But with this, no. I was like, no, stop it. Don't do it. Please stop. And so I just, although it kind of triggered me and I didn't like the possessiveness, I still would have appreciated more information, more build up to how he got, like, that ended up happening. It seemed really random. It felt like it was smushed in towards the end to make you understand why he's more possessive, because he had her at some point, and I don't know. I just really didn't like any of that. A fun question, would you ever make a deal with Luke? Luke definitely comes after people in their most desperate times. And it just kind of made me wonder for myself, like, if I were desperate enough, do I think I would make a deal with Luke? Would I sell my soul? For me, I don't think I would. I'm the kind of person who does not like to bet. Even like a silly bet with my wife of like 20 bucks, I get so much anxiety. I can't even like wager 20 bucks on something, let alone my own actual soul. So I don't think I would be someone who would make a deal with Luke, but it was still like an interesting concept to think about. What do you think about the ending? Like I said, I originally thought the ending was Henry dying, and I actually liked that ending more than the true ending. I know some people who did like the ending, the true ending, and I know a couple of people who didn't, because it kind of felt phony about how her journals that Henry writes become a book, and it kind of gives you the feeling of, oh, is this book from Addie? Was it like, is she a real person? And so I know people who didn't like that aspect. Now we're gonna rate it out of 5 stars. But when I thought it was a really dark ending, I gave it like a 3.5. So overall, I give the book 3 stars. It was definitely darker than books I have previously read, which is not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing to read a different book than you're used to. At the moment, I'm really into like fantasy romance. I like a slow burn. I like a happy ending. I like smut, and I want it to be end on like a happy note. And so, and some things like I really liked was I did like the writing style. I liked the art. I liked the concept. So that kind of gave it the 3 stars, but what kept it from going from 3 to 5 stars really for me is like the jumping back and forth, the lots of details about different stories that don't necessarily pertain to the story, and then like all these chapters about her going back to visit Estelle, while it was nice, it didn't really matter. Like, I would have easily traded those for chapters explaining more about her decades with Luke, and more development there. I also just thought it was really inconsistent how, like, they hate each other. She hates him. He claims he loves her. She says he's incapable of love, but she falls for it. And then after, like, decades together, it's a whole ruse about how, oh, I tricked you. I was just trying to get you to forfeit your soul or whatever. And she doesn't fall for it and she leaves. And then decades later, he's like, no, I do want you. I do love you. It was just really inconsistent all over the place. And I didn't really enjoy it. And I would have been fine with it being a little triggering. I don't like to glorify abusive relationships, and it kind of feels like it does a little bit, but I understand it. It's not for no reason. I can really understand it and relate to it. So yeah, so I give it 3 stars. And it will have a home on my bookshelf. My kind of, like, I absolutely hated this book is I will actually return it because I'm like, I don't want to see it on my shelf. I don't think I'll ever reread it, but it will definitely go on my shelf. This is a standalone book. There will not be a sequel. However, it has been, like, the movie rights for it have been purchased. There will be a movie. I will watch it if it actually comes out. I just wouldn't reread the book. If someone's like, give me recommendations for a book, this isn't one that I would suggest. I could see where a lot of people loved it. It was very emotional, especially talking about, like, Henry's depression and his big feelings, and the arts that's included, and the poetic writing, and the writing style and everything. I could see where a lot of people loved it. It just wasn't the one for me, and that's okay. Not every book is going to be loved by every person, and that's okay. But yeah, so what did you think of The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue? I'll have these questions down below in the description box if you want to copy them, and in the comments below you can answer them yourself, and I'll go ahead and I can reply and we can have a whole discussion, just the 2 of us. You're also welcome to join our Facebook group, which is linked down below. We do the live chat discussions in private Facebook room. I also do a post in the group, and then we also have Instagram. Lots of places to connect and talk about these books. So this was the book of the month for December 2020. January 2021's book is Half-Blood by Jennifer Armentrout. So if you want to go ahead and pick that up, you can start reading with us. And then that chat discussion will go up next month. But yeah. So I look forward to reading the next book with you. And if you have any opinions or comments, I'd love to hear them down below. And I will see you next time.